Do you ever wonder when you should expect your quail to stop laying eggs for good? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Rednecked video. Again, my name's Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or even a spare room in your house if that's what you want to do. Oh, I had a hard time getting that one out today. But anyway, again, today we're going to be talking about when you should expect your quail to stop laying eggs. And what I'm talking about today really is more of a topic of like, when do you need to replace your quail? If you're looking for information on like why your quail stopped laying eggs, there's really just a couple of reasons why, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video, but I've got other videos that address that as well. But right now what we're talking about is how long should you expect them to lay for, like for their lifetime? When should you have to worry about replacing them? And that's really going to depend on what you're raising your quail for. If you just want meat and egg, or if you just want egg production out of your birds, you just have them around, you don't plan on raising them for meat, you're not going to be incubating eggs or any of those kinds of things, your quail will lay eggs for a very long time. But you're going to get your best egg production in the first 18 months. Now, if you give them a break during the winter, you don't put lights on the cage, and as the days start to shorten, the birds will just naturally stop laying eggs when the daylight gets below about 12 hours a day. You give them that break during the winter time and kick them back up in the spring, you can get probably about 2 years out of them with pretty good, almost an egg a day production. But as they start getting older, they will start to slow down. They don't just stop laying their eggs because of age, but they'll slow down on their egg production. Whereas the first 18 months or so, you're going to get maybe an egg a day out of the birds, assuming you've got enough light on them. That is the #1 reason why birds stop laying in the wintertime, is they don't have enough light. The days get shorter. So if you have 14 hours a day of light on them, and you're getting an egg a day out of those birds, you'll get an egg a day out of them until they're probably around 18 months old. And then they're going to start to slow down a little bit, where instead of getting 7 eggs a week, an egg a day, you may get 5 eggs a week, or 6 eggs a week, or 4 eggs a week. And then it'll be a little bit sporadic. Sometimes you'll get 6 or 7 eggs out of them, and then sometimes it'll be 5 eggs or 4 eggs. And they just start to slow down as they get older. But their prime is really 18 months to 2 years. Now, if you're looking at getting, let me back up. If you're looking at incubating your eggs and you want to get meat production out of your birds as well, you're going to want to ensure the best fertility in your birds, and that's definitely going to be within the first year. After the first year, after the first 12 months, fertility starts to drop a little bit in the eggs. Their egg production starts to slow down again after 18 months. So you're really best off, if you want to keep the best fertility for meat birds, replacing your birds about once every 12 to 18 months, somewhere right around in there. Now, I do tend to let mine go up to 2 years sometimes before I worry about replacing them, and I do notice a drop in fertility. My hatch rates start to drop a little bit at that point, but I'm not too terribly concerned about that. I usually incubate enough eggs that if I only get a 60% hatch rate out of them, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. But again, 18 months is the absolute best production you're going to get out of your birds. 12 months is the best fertility rates you're going to get out of your birds. And again, that's assuming you keep lights on them. If you give them that break during the wintertime, you can stretch that out a little bit longer, but you're not getting eggs in the wintertime. In the fall. They're going to stop laying when the days start to get shorter. Around here, I live in southwest Missouri. The days start getting shorter, and without natural light, or without artificial light on them to extend the daylight to 14 hours a day, they stop laying in early fall, mid-fall, somewhere around October, mid-October, and they won't pick back up again until probably April to May, somewhere right around in there. Now, if I keep light on these, so I add an artificial light at that time, and I extend the daylight to 14 hours a day, I can keep them laying almost all year long. They usually still take a little bit of a break from about mid-December through about early January, somewhere right around in there, and then they'll pick back up. So, if you do give them that natural break in the wintertime, you will get longer lifespan out of your birds. Not lifespan, but longer egg-laying lifespan. It's been said several places when it comes to quail, chickens, any kind of bird like that, that they're born with a finite number of eggs that they'll lay in their lifetime, and once they hit that number, they're pretty much done. So, you can kind of think of that in the sense that if you do keep them laying all winter long, you're shortening their egg-laying life cycle, if that makes sense. So anyway, this is a question that's come up fairly frequently on the live broadcast. People want to know, you know, how long is a quail going to live? How long is it going to lay eggs? When should I look at replacing them or anything like that? And again, it really kind of depends on what you want to do with your birds. But if you want the best fertility out of them, if you plan on raising them for meat and you want to incubate eggs and get the best fertility, the best practice, absolutely best practice, once a year, replace your birds. Now, let me address another topic while we're talking about that. When it comes to replacing my birds, what I do typically is just once a year, maybe once every 1.5 to 2 years. It just depends. Sometimes I go 2 years without replacing them. Sometimes I replace them every year. Sometimes I replace them multiple times a year. But it just kind of depends. So what I'll do is I'll take a hatch that I've had from these birds, and I'm raising them up. I'll pick the biggest birds from that hatch right there, and those become my future breeders. I just move them into this hutch. I process these birds. They go to the freezer. Where was I going with this? There was somewhere, oh, I know there's been concerns brought up with that, with people concerned about inbreeding. It's not really a big concern with the birds. You've got a mix of birds in here. There's no way to tell which bird comes from which, you know, father and mother or anything like that. So the inbreeding's not a big concern. You know, you probably have to go several generations before you worry about inbreeding. And as long as you bring some new blood in about once every 3 years or so, something like that, and all it takes is just a new rooster or two, then you're not going to have any issues ever with inbreeding. It's not going to be a problem. You don't need to worry about that. It's not a big concern. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is, just in case you are looking at this video wanting to know, you know, my birds stopped laying for some reason, why is that? I've already kind of talked about the daylight. That's the #1 reason, the amount of light that the birds are going to get. That's the #1 reason whether they'll lay or they won't lay. Same thing if your birds have hit 8 weeks old and they're not laying yet. Light is the #1 thing that can make an impact on that. But there are a couple of other things that can. The other big thing is stress. So if you move your birds around, move them from one cage to another, or you know, you went and bought some birds from somebody, you picked them up and brought them home and they laid eggs on the way home, but then whenever you got them in the hutch, they stopped laying eggs. Well, that's the stress of moving. They'll pick back up, just leave them alone, try not to stress them out. They'll pick back up, give them a week or two, assuming you've got enough light. That's the #1 thing. Now, if you have enough light, your birds are in a hutch they've always been in, and then they suddenly stop laying for some reason, it could be stress of like a predator or something like that that's coming around and putting pressure on them. That will cause them to stop laying as well. But as soon as that stress goes away, about 2 weeks, they're going to start laying again, assuming all the other factors are right. Sometimes drastic changes in diet can do that, but you know, it can stress them out and it can cause them to quit laying eggs, but that's kind of rare, honestly. It's as long as you're feeding a good quality game bird feed. I haven't noticed a big drop in production one way or the other. Sometimes I've had to shift. I feed a high protein game bird feed, about a 30%, but sometimes I've had to get a 20% game bird feed, and that doesn't really affect their egg laying. They've continued to lay just about the same as they always have. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for this video, so hopefully you got the information you were looking for. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, God bless.